49ers found themselves struggling at 4-4 in the 9th game of the season after throwing a franchise record 97-yard touchdown pass to John Taylor. Young suffered a knee injury and was replaced by backup quarterback Steve Bono. After a loss in that game and the next, Bono led the 49ers to 5 consecutive victories, playing so well that coach George Seifert decided to keep him in the starting lineup after Young had recovered. It wasn't until late in the 15th game of the season, after Bono went down with an injury of his own, that Young got to play again. Young then closed out the season by throwing for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also rushing for 63 yards and another touchdown in a 52-14 win over the Chicago Bears in a Monday Night Football game at Candlestick Park. Young finished the season with an NFL best 101.8 passer rating. Despite missing 5 full games and most of a sixth, he still threw for 2,517 yards and 17 touchdowns with only 8 interceptions. Despite Young's strong season, the season for the team was widely regarded as a disappointment. The 49ers slipped from a 14-2 record the previous season to 10-6 in 1991. While 10 wins is usually enough to make the playoffs, this time it was not, and San Francisco ended up not playing in the postseason for the first time since 1982. It was thought by many that Young's days as a 49er starter were numbered due to the impending return of Montana from the injury to his right elbow, and some observers said the 49ers should trade Young and keep Montana and Bono. However, the trade never happened. By the start of the 1992 season, it appeared that Young's starting job was in serious peril. In addition to having to compete with Bono, Montana appeared to be close to recovering from his elbow tendonitis surgery. San Francisco came close to trading Young to the Los Angeles Raiders, but no deal was finalized, and it turned out that Montana would not recover in time to start in the opening game. In fact, Montana would not recover until the final game of the 1992 season, a Monday night home game against the Detroit Lions. Montana played the entire second half of the final game and guided the 49ers to victory. Young actually ended up as San Francisco's starting quarterback, but once again got off to a rough start. On the 5th play of the opening game at the Giants, he suffered a concussion and was replaced by Bono, who threw 2 touchdown passes while leading the 49ers to a 31-14 victory. The following week, the San Francisco 49ers lost 34-31 to the Buffalo Bills, despite a career-high 449 passing yards and 3 touchdowns from Young in a game that, for the first time in NFL history, had no punts from either team. Young recovered and led the 49ers on a 5-game winning streak, capped off by a 56-17 win over the Atlanta Falcons, in which Young passed for 399 yards and 3 touchdowns. After missing most of the next game, a 24-14 loss to the Cardinals with the flu, he led San Francisco to victory in all of the remaining games of the season, giving the team a 14-2 record. He went on to throw for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns and rush for 73 in a 20-13 divisional playoff win over the Washington Redskins. The 49ers would lose the NFC title game, however, 30-20 against the eventual Super Bowl champion, Dallas Cowboys. Young threw for 313 yards, completing 71.4% of his passes while passing for 1 touchdown and rushing for another. He also threw 2 interceptions, but the final one came with the outcome of the game already decided. Young finished the 1992 season with 3,465 passing yards and 537 rushing yards, along with an NFL best 25 touchdown passes and a 107.0 passer rating, earning him the NFL's Most Valuable Player award and his first selection to the Pro Bowl. He was the first quarterback to ever record a triple-digit rating in consecutive seasons. Many credit Young's turnaround to the mentoring of 49ers' new offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan, who worked with Young on combining his running skills with on-the-move passing decisions. Before the start of the 1993 season, team owner Eddie DeBartolo Jr. announced that he wanted Montana to resume his role as starting quarterback for the 49ers. However, a rift in the locker room had developed, with players split on whom they wanted to be at quarterback. In the spring of 1993, at Montana's request, San Francisco traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs. Young was now the 49ers' undisputed starter and would remain so for the rest of his career. But once again, he had a rough start to the season. Over the first 4 games of 1993, Young, who was hindered by a swollen thumb on his throwing hand, threw 8 interceptions, more than he had thrown during the entire 1992 season. But after his thumb healed, Young went on an incredible streak over a span of 7 games, throwing 16 touchdown passes with only 2 interceptions and a 122.2 passer rating. By the end of the year, Young had set franchise records for most passing yards, 4,023, and consecutive passes thrown without an interception, 189. On a side note, that record was actually eclipsed by Alex Smith in 2012. He also led the NFL in touchdown passes with 29 and a passer rating of 101.5. The team slipped to a 10-6 record, but advanced to the NFC Championship game again by blowing out the New York Giants 44-3 in the divisional round. However, once again, they were defeated by the Dallas Cowboys, this time 38-21. After several key free agent signings, including All-Pro cornerback Deion Sanders and NFL draft selections, the 49ers looked to win their first Super Bowl since 1989 in the 1994 season. They started fast, beating the Los Angeles Raiders 44-14 on the strength of 4 touchdown passes from Young, one of 4 games during the regular season in which he would have at least 4 touchdowns. After a loss in a much-anticipated game to Joe Montana and the Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers won their next 2 games before losing to the Philadelphia Eagles 40-8 at Candlestick Park, a game in which Young was eventually benched in the middle of an offensive series. Although head coach George Seifert later said he only pulled Young because he was getting manhandled by the Eagles' defense, Young had had enough of being scapegoated for the 49ers' shortfalls and loudly and visibly lambasted Seifert over the decision while standing on the sideline during the game. With all that happening, though, the game was considered a turning point in the season because from there, Young led the team to 10 consecutive wins by an average of 20 points before losing the meaningless finale at the Vikings, in which Young completed his first 12 of 13 passes before going to the sidelines. They finished an NFL best 13-3, securing home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. The 49ers had the number 1 offense in the NFL and were so dominant that Seifert often took Young out of games early if he felt the 49ers had an insurmountable lead at the time. After an easy 44-15 victory over the Chicago Bears in the divisional round of the playoffs, the 49ers jumped out to a 31-14 halftime lead over the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. Holding on to win 38-28, Young threw for 2 touchdowns while adding 47 yards and another touchdown on the ground. As a result, he went to his first Super Bowl as a starting quarterback. The 49ers were the heavy favorites to become the first team with 5 Super Bowl victories. On the strength of a 6-touchdown performance that surpassed the previous Super Bowl record of 5 owned by the man Young replaced, Joe Montana, Steve Young was named the MVP of Super Bowl 29 as the 49ers defeated the San Diego Chargers 49-26. Young also threw for 325 yards and rushed for 49 yards, making him the first player ever to finish a Super Bowl as the game leader in both rushing and passing yards. The victory capped off an incredible year for Young, who had one of the best seasons by a quarterback in NFL history. He threw for 3,969 yards, a then franchise record 35 touchdown passes with only 10 interceptions, completing 70.3% of his passes, the highest completion percentage in the 90s, third all-time, and at the time, the best completion percentage by any quarterback with more than 400 attempts. Additionally, Young broke Joe Montana's single-season mark with a then-record 112.8 passer rating, and also, once again, demonstrated his great scrambling ability, accumulating another 289 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. For his record-breaking season performances, Young was awarded his second AP NFL MVP and becoming the 7th player in NFL history to win both league and Super Bowl MVP honors in the same season. In the 3 years following Super Bowl 29, the 49ers would be eliminated each year by Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers, twice in San Francisco. In addition to the early playoff exits, Young suffered a series of injuries that forced him to miss several games from 1995 to 1997. Young entered the 1998 season at the age of 37, and some began to wonder if his skills would diminish because of his history of injuries and a general decline in his game due to age. However, he silenced all the critics once again, putting up career numbers in passing 4,170 yards and in passing touchdowns with 36. The 49ers finally defeated Favre and the Packers in the NFC wildcard game that year as Young threw a game-winning touchdown pass to wide receiver Terrell Owens with 3 seconds remaining to win the game 30-27. In reference to Dwight Clark's legendary catch against the Dallas Cowboys in the 1981 NFC Championship game, Owens' grab was called the Catch 2. A week later, however, Garrison Hurst broke his ankle on the 49ers' first play from scrimmage. Without the threat of a running game, Young threw 3 interceptions. The last one, though, was a Hail Mary with under 30 seconds remaining in the game, and the 49ers were defeated by the Atlanta Falcons 20-18. Over the span of seasons from 95 to 98, Young led the league in passer rating twice in 96 and 97 and led the NFL with 36 touchdowns in 1998. The 1999 season would turn out to be Young's last in the NFL. Young was plagued by concussions throughout his career, and during a Week 3 Monday Night Football game against the Arizona Cardinals, Young was violently sacked by Cardinals cornerback Aeneas Williams on a blitz. Running back Lawrence Phillips was supposed to pick up Williams, but missed. Young was knocked out of the game with a concussion and didn't return for the rest of the season due to symptoms of post-concussion syndrome. The concussion he suffered against the Cardinals was reportedly his second in a season that was only 3 weeks old, and the 7th, at least, of his career. Following the season, the 49ers told him that he would be released if he did not retire. Although Young was offered a job as the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, where his former offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan was now the head coach, he retired because of his repeated concussions. In a 2013 Frontline interview, Young stated that partially based upon their own experiences, he and many retired players are increasingly concerned about the repeated concussions and subconcussive hits. Although Young did not become the 49ers starter until his 8th NFL season, and he played a full season only 3 times, all consecutively during his 15-year career, Young had a significant impact on the NFL. A 2-time league MVP, he completed 2,667 of his 4,149 passes for 33,124 yards and 232 touchdowns, with 107 interceptions and 43 rushing touchdowns. His 96.8 career passer rating is 6th highest in NFL history and 2nd highest among retired players, behind only Tony Romo. His 4,239 rushing yards are 4th most ever gained by a quarterback behind Michael Vick, Cam Newton, and Randall Cunningham. He was the NFL's top-rated passer in 6 different seasons and led the league in touchdown passes 4 times. In 20 postseason games, he threw 20 touchdown passes with only 13 interceptions and scored 8 touchdowns on the ground. In his stint with the San Francisco 49ers, Young passed for 29,907 yards, 221 touchdowns, and 86 interceptions, with a passer rating of 101.4, highest in franchise history. He was also sacked 290 times, also most in franchise history. In 1999, he was ranked as number 63 on the Sporting News list of the 100 greatest football players. Young was also elected into the Pro Football Hall